All right, I'm back to try to finish part 4 of the Discourse on Method, and I'm using an old phone because the one I've been using is being a jerk. There's something wrong with the battery. Anything I delete from the gallery doesn't seem to free up any space. It's like there's a fragmentation issue in the gallery. I don't know. Once the knowledge of God and the soul has thus made us certain of this rule, it is very easy to know that the dreams we imagine while asleep ought in no way to make us doubt the truth of the thoughts we have while awake. So the thought experiment where, like in the movie Inception, we're in a dream world and we don't know it, should not make us worry that we're actually in a dream world. The thought experiment is only temporary. It's just doubt leading to certainty once we establish the existence of God, having first established the reality of the self as a soul, a thinking thing. And it's by proving that God exists that we can prove that we are not, in fact, in a dream world or in the Matrix. Descartes is now about to go over this again in hopefully a little more detail or a little more clarity than in the last paragraph, which was in the last video. For if it did happen, even while asleep, that one had a very distinct idea, as for example, if a geometer found some new demonstration, one's being asleep would not prevent its being true. And as to the most common error of our dreams, which consists in the fact that they represent to us various objects in the same way as our external senses do, it does not matter that it gives us occasion to question the truth of such ideas, since they can also deceive us quite often without our being asleep, etc., etc. For finally, whether awake or asleep, we should never allow ourselves to be persuaded except by the evidence of our reason. Reason is crucial. Reason is more important than the senses, whether awake or asleep. And if it is to be observed that I say of our reason and not of our... And it is to be observed that I say of our reason and not of our imagination or of our senses. Reason is more trustworthy than the senses or the imagination. Remember, the term imagination in this context means the faculty of imagining physical things in your mind, or the mental representation of physical things. That's what imagination means. Let's skip a sentence. But it does dictate to us that all our ideas or notions must have some foundation of truth, for it would not be possible that God, here we're finally getting to the main point, that God who is all perfect and all truthful for it would not be possible that God who is all perfect and all truthful would have put them in us without that. Our ideas or notions must have some foundation of truth, because it's not possible that a perfect God would have given us these ideas or notions without that. The main and direct and clearer argument is that God gave us our faculties by which we perceive the world and form beliefs about it, by which we understand things and by which we believe things. And these faculties, being given by God, must be not infallible things, but reliable things. And because our reasonings are never so evident nor so complete while we are asleep as they are while we are awake, even though our imaginings while we are asleep are sometimes just as vivid and explicit as those we have while we are awake, or even more so, reason also dictates to us that our thoughts cannot all be true, since we are not all perfect. What truth there is in them must infallibly be encountered in those we have when we are awake, rather than in those we have in our dreams. Okay, so being awake is more reliable than being in a dream, and reason is more reliable than the senses or the imagination, in that particular sense of the term imagination. But the main point is just this one. Let's go over that sentence one more time. But it does dictate to us that all our ideas or notions must have some foundation of truth, for it would not be possible that God, who is all perfect and all truthful, would have put them in us without that. Our ideas, like the idea that I'm in a world that exists outside my mind, and the idea that I'm not in the Matrix, I'm not in a dream, and the idea that 2 + 2 = 4, and the sum of the angles of a triangle equals 180 degrees, and my idea that I can use reason to figure these things out, and I can use my 5 senses to put me in contact with the world outside the mind and learn about it. These ideas come from a perfect God who put them in us, and therefore they must have some foundation of truth, and therefore reason and the 5 senses can be trusted if we use reason properly, if we are careful with the 5 senses and use reason to correct it, and we are certainly not in the Matrix, and we're not in a dream world. These thought experiments are permanently banished from Descartes' philosophy, and we are now finished with part 4 of the discourse. Let me try a one-sentence summary of the main point here. God is a perfect being, and God has given us our faculties for believing, and our idea that we are in a physical, three-dimensional world outside the mind, not a matrix, not a dreamscape. And since these ideas and faculties come from a perfect God, they must be reliable, because God is not such a jerk as to give us massively unreliable faculties or ideas with no foundation in the truth. All the same, we're fallible, and we got to be really careful. All right, thanks for watching. Now we're going to have to see if this thing was properly recorded and can be transferred to my desktop.